We've all seen the memes. We've all heard the Eurobeat. But to nobody's surprise, we've actually not all seen the anime. I'm looking at you, JoJo memers. It has been a couple years since I finished Initial D, but all the memories are still fresh in my mind. It's absolutely one of my favorite anime ever created. So if you're already bored of listening to me, yes, you should watch the anime. Have fun, my dude. Now that all the uphill virgins left and a true downhill chads still remain, let me explain to you why you should give Initial D a go, even when it's so incredibly dated. One thing to note is that this is all completely spoiler free. The story of Initial D follows young Takumi Fujiwara, who is your average high school kid. His father, Bunta Fujiwara, an ex-drifting champion, owns a tofu shop and lets his son Takumi run the delivery service in his Toyota Sprinter Trueno AE86. Takumi was forced to drive by his father since he was in middle school. So, ironically, he starts off with a general hatred towards driving. However, big brain Bunta used these tofu deliveries to train his son in the art of drifting the mountain pass, known as toge in Japan. His friends start taking note of the skill and introduce him to the wonderful world of toge racing. This is where Takumi starts his journey of becoming the best driver in the Gunma prefecture, and later in all of Japan. On paper, this can seem as a pretty generic sports, action, shonen or seinen formula. But there's more than meets the eye in the world of Initial D. The anime ran from 1998 to 2014, spanning across 6 different seasons, or stages. There are also a couple of OVAs and extra movies, but I recommend going through the main story first, before touching these. Even though the new Initial D Legend movies might seem appealing, with better polished visuals, they miss out on a lot of the story Initial D has to offer. And I mean, there's no Eurobeat in the movies. And that should say enough. The hard part of getting into Initial D is its first couple seasons, with graphics that could make an appearance on a PlayStation 1 game. Oh wait, that sorta happened. The visuals overall are, in today's standards, pretty bad. But as someone who loves the old anime aesthetics, I could definitely look past this. And I hope you can as well. The races, on the other hand, are done with old 3D CGI. And while Berserk still looked way worse, it can definitely throw you off. But I will give credit to the visuals team nonetheless. There is not much info on what software they use to bring the visuals to life, but they used what they had and tried their hardest to make something great. To me, it has its charm, and I just enjoyed watching everything unfold. Where the visuals might lack in the first stages, the makes up for absolutely everything, right next to the amazing development of various characters. The sound design is done by Mima Masafumi. And if you don't recognize this name, let me demonstrate that you have probably heard at least a few of his works. And you should pay more respect to this legend. And then there's also there. Now, this is the same person who worked on Initial D. And it shows. I have absolutely no idea how cars work, what part makes what sound, or why some of them work better on uphills than downhills, and vice versa. Apart from the incredible depth Initial D goes in on the technical aspect of how cars work, every single one of them sounds insanely distinct from one another. Even to a point where you start to recognize some before they even appear on screen. Hell, even the simple dinging of the 8.6's speed chime is a treat to listen to now. If you start hearing that thing whilst watching the show, you know you're in for a fucking treat. And I haven't even started about the Eurobeat. Eurobeat is a music genre that originated in the 1980s. In, well, Europe. Specifically in Italy. It's roughly described as a form of high NRG pop dance music. To say that Initial D brought this specific genre into the light of day would be kind of an understatement. It grew in popularity in the mid-late 1980s, but saw a new boom in Japan after the release of rhythm games and of course Initial D. There's simply no other music that fits the high intensity races of Initial D more. Dave Rogers, Leslie Parrish, Mega NRG Man, Max Covery, Vicky Vale, Move, and so many other great artists have their legacy ingrained into this amazing show. This is also why I feel that the 3 Legend movies just don't pack as much of a punch as the real anime, as the soundtrack consists of J-rock, instead of the Eurobeat we all know and love. Don't get me wrong, the music slaps, but it misses the target just barely. Next to the amazing sound design is a grand cast of characters, who all have their own respective place in this universe. You mainly follow a small group of friends, Takumi, Itsuki, Iketani, and Kenji, who all try their best to get Takumi to... This cast later expands, but I will refrain from going into too much detail why. Initial D is also considered a coming-of-age story, and it's very noticeable in how the main 4 characters mature and fight various obstacles in their careers. The characters and overall story of them are just so grounded and real. There's no weird special basketball moves, no crazy fire tornado football shots. It's just people with their cars, their troubled love life.
That's not what I imagined. I hate my life.
And their pure driving skills. Okay, well, there's also...
I'm just in the mood for a smoke.
Then who's steering the car?
There's nothing over the top, and that makes for a sweet change of pace from your usual shonen or seinen action shows. I mean, you just get to experience the homeboys enjoying some fucking cars, my dude. Thanks to the help of a consultant, the real Dorifto Kingu himself, Keiichi Tsushiya, Initial D manages to give a really accurate view of the underground drifting world in Japan. Racing teams, love interests, and the technical side of cars all carry a realistic depth to them in the anime, thanks to the help of Tsushiya. Even if you're not into cars, drifting or sports, Initial D is an experience I'd love for everyone to at least try. The high intensity Eurobeat, mixed with memorable characters and cool cars, catch you on the edge of your seat for every individual battle. The anime doesn't really rely on general high stakes to do so, but more so on the pride of the characters and their personal stakes. Okay, and sometimes they just want to compensate for their dick suck. Every individual battle comes with its distinct obstacles and twists that both protagonist and antagonist have to overcome. And that's what makes every battle so intense. Every main or supporting character has a gap to fill, and I genuinely feel like there's not a single character who felt rushed or thrown in with no purpose. So, in conclusion, you need to give Initial D a try. In my humble opinion. Great character design is also a big factor. There's going to be characters you will love or hate, unlike shows where all characters are made to be loved and fought over. The visuals gradually upgrade, so stage 1 and maybe stage 2 might be a little pain in the exhaust to get through. But I will promise you that if you sit through for the entire ride, you will find yourself an amazing experience. The sound design is just so incredibly iconic. Initial D has made a couple of musical synths into the biggest memes on the internet. All cars sound iconic, cool and recognizable, and all have their unique technical strengths and weaknesses that make one better or worse in specific scenarios. Like, you know, that's how cars work. The story of Takumi is one that is just simply cool to have living rent-free in your head. Learning how he masters the Hachiroku, seeing how he deals with a conflicting love interest, or honestly just how he becomes the most renowned meme drifter. Overall, Initial D gets a solid 8.5 from me. It honestly just clicked with me, even though I have zero knowledge about cars and racing. I used to listen to Eurobeat way before watching Initial D, so that made some of the battles even more epic, especially when you recognize a track you already loved before. I fucking love the characters, with Takumi and Ryosuke being my personal favorite. I mean, hello? Ryosuke is literally voiced by Takehito Koyasu. You know, that dude where if you hear his voice, you will fucking cream your pants every time. Oh, and he's also the voice of Dio, so, you know, we stand. I would love for more people to know about the magic of Initial D. And not just because, oh wow, car going at incredibly high speed, haha, deja vu. Let me know if you love Initial D, or if I've convinced you to give it a try. And also leave a comment down below if there's anything you would like for me to review. And with that, have a good one.